Then I flew back home from Vietnam, and I never had anybody get mad at me because I've been in the military. I hear all kinds of stories about that, and I kind of go, yeah, it never happened to me. Now, I might not have been in uniform that much, but I would have flown around in uniform to begin with, because you got a better deal flying around. So, in fact, the first time I flew, I was stationed in California, and it was 45 minutes up to catch the airplane, and I felt real bad. I was in Lemoore, and I had to get up to Fresno to catch the plane. And typical me, like, well, I don't want to let people know I'm going to do something personal. I'm going flying to go to Colorado to see the girlfriend who was at the time. And so I think, well, I'll stay here as long as I can. So I stay there, and then something comes up, then something else comes up. So I drive up there, I get up there. The plane, back in those days, they had those roll-up ramps to get on the, so they were just pulling that off of there when I got up there. So I show up in my uniform and go, I'm supposed to be on the plane, I'm supposed to. So they rolled the thing back up there and loaded me back onto the plane. So I never got any bad feelings about how people were looking at the military at the time. So I'm sure that some people did, but like a lot of things, I think a lot of it is, it's kind of what's reported in the news. It's like how people see other countries. It's, you think of, you know, people from overseas think of the United States as being New York, or, you know, big cities or something along this line. Or they're just certain fixed ideas. We think of England as being what London's like, or something along this line. So I never experienced it. And you know, I was always proud I served. I was glad I served. You could really see the fallacies of war and the suffering of the civilian population and those types of situations. We're just a blessed country to be in the middle between Canada and Mexico that we haven't fought with in 150, 200 years, and it's just, but countries, it's pretty tough to be caught in the middle for all the people that were civilians, and even the people that were actively in the military that had to be in there. You sit there and say, these people aren't that passionate about being free and fighting for their leadership. They just want to be able to live a life and live a normal life. And we spend so much time and effort trying to, quote, the Vietnamization program, of turning things over to them, which was a good idea, but like a lot of things, giving people things never works as well as people earning things. I think most people who served probably are glad that they served. Most people that served probably wouldn't sign up for it again right away, and especially the wars that we've been involved in. But it's something that you're glad you did once it's over with. All right, well, let's see. They wanted me to talk a little bit more about Vietnam and my experiences there. But when I first got there, I was really scared a lot of the time. At night you'd go to bed, and it was always harassment fire, and it was always in the evening. So I thought to myself, well, I just get tired. Where I was at, I'd have to run across, I don't know, maybe 100 yards or so, 120 yards to the outskirts where the Seabees were at, which is a group of people that I had. And then we had a bunker there, and we were supposed to patrol that to make sure we didn't have any enemy coming onto the base, which we never did. But, you always had to go running, and it was always kind of nerve-wracking at night. So I moved up there to sleep with them for quite a while, and finally, after we went into Cambodia and everything like that, the amount of supplies that the enemy had was cut down so drastically that we hardly had any enemy fire the last 6 or 7 months I was there. In fact, I probably didn't have 1 or 2 attacks at the very most the last 6 or 7 months I was there. And they were never, that bad. The Vietnamese that were at my base with me, I was a military advisor. I had 2 Vietnamese officers and about 75 enlisted guys. And then we had about 12 U.S. guys that were there. And it was a really nice group. The Vietnamese Navy was a division of the Vietnamese Army, and the guys in the units that I was training were trained to be electricians or carpenters or plumbers. So they were learning a skill, and that was really kind of worthwhile. It was a lot better than just being out and learning how to shoot things, people. And they were nice guys. About a third of them spoke some English, some of them spoke they understood a little bit of English. About a third didn't understand English at all. But I was fortunate we were able to turn the base over.
I was always real satisfied or proud of the fact that we were the first naval small support facility like that to turn the base over to the Vietnamese. And I had a good couple of officers that I worked with, nice guys. One was, they were Dai Huys and Trung Huys. And unfortunately, I never stayed in contact with him once I left the base. And our base was located about 70 miles from Saigon down the Mekong Delta, and it was just, we were only a few miles from a town called Mito. And now when I look on the Google map, there's a big highway that goes through there, and it's got all kinds of development around it, so it is amazing. And of course, it's 40 years later, so you'd expect things to change. Actually, it's 45 years or 47 years later, so you expect things to change. But the country seemed to get settled down, and people ask me if I'd like to go back, and I don't have any great desire to go back. If I went back to, if I knew somebody that was going to be there, if I knew some of the Vietnamese that I'd worked with, it would be nice to go see them and see how they were doing. But I have no way of connecting with them. And before that, I was stationed at Lemoore Naval Air Station, and when I was there, I was in public works, and I had a CB group there, and then I was a shops engineer, and I took care of base facilities, and that was interesting, challenging. I enjoyed it. One of the best things about it, you could rent skis there in the base for $1 for the weekend. Skis, boots, and poles for $1 on the weekend, and so I decided I learned to ski, and that was, it was a good experience from supervising people. It was a good experience from, having something, kind of learn a new skill and have some fun to do. I don't think I would have done it otherwise. I think Hayden asked me about one thing. I think I told him once about a story about, at the base we were at, we had 105 howitzers that would fire out, and then the enemy had mortar rounds or rockets that they would fire in. And I don't want to overdo it. It wasn't that frequent. When I was first there, it was pretty frequent. It was maybe every 3 days or 4 days. But then after a couple, 3 months, it really did settle down. But one time, we were in our beds at night. We were sleeping, and some rounds came in, and we get up and take off running, and we run over the bunk that was right beside our hooch where we stayed. And then we put our boots on and our jackets, and we have our guns, and we go off running. And I was running with this one other lieutenant, and we're running along Cleary Split. All of a sudden, there was this big kabam, and he goes flying to the ground, and I stepped right on him. And we were running behind the hooch. It was dark, and he couldn't see where he was going anyway. And I thought he'd gotten hit. I wondered what happened to me, and it turns out there was a short round going out, which is a artillery round that's going out that fires too soon, or all artillery rounds are timed when they go, so they're supposed to hit before they hit the ground. This round exploded too soon, so I don't know how far away it was, but you could hear it, and it wasn't too far away, but it was at us. And all he did was he ran into a wire that was kind of angled across there, and it knocked him to the ground. And I thought he was dead at first, and then he started to laugh because he thought, oh God, what, did I get hit or what happened? And I go, no, I don't think so. And we crawled under this hooch, and we just sat there and laughed for a few minutes. I guess we were just relieved of the fact that we weren't really hurt at all, although he had a black and blue mark up there above his eye, I guess. So that was one story I can remember telling Hayden about. So Hayden, that's my war story. But none of my enlisted guys got hurt in there. None of the guys, and the Vietnamese guys that got hurt while I was there too. We had a few people that did get hurt at the base during mortar attacks, but none of my people did.
I think Hayden asked you about Bangkok.
Oh, at Bangkok? Oh, my social life in Bangkok? Oh, I went to Bangkok, and like a lot of people, I got sidetracked there. So it was kind of interesting when I first got there because. When you get off the plane, I wasn't expecting to see guys that were in military, but they had military people from the Thai government that were there when you from a police standpoint. So, and I just vaguely remember Bangkok kind of partying and just kind of hanging out. So it was fun. It was interesting, and I didn't get in too much trouble. I made my plane getting back home. So didn't get to the beach. Just I think we spent most of our time going to nightclubs. So, you know, Hong Kong, when I went to Hong Kong, it was really nice and clean, and it was neat. Bangkok didn't strike me the same way, And I went down to Australia, and Australia was kind of, I played some tennis down there. I ran into a guy who was a fraternity brother down there, so he just had gotten married. He was there with his wife on his honeymoon, and I hadn't seen him in like 3 or 4 years, and I had never seen him since. But we went to the musical Hair. I can remember doing that, and out to dinner. But it was, I didn't go with anybody, which was kind of. It's always kind of more fun with me if I'm doing something with somebody type of thing. I'm sure I would remember things better and that sort of thing. I do remember when I was in Australia playing tennis, they had dirt tennis courts down there that you played on dirt. And there was some guy who was a pilot from Pan Am or something like that. And I played tennis with him when I was down there. So that's about it for the military. I skied a little bit. I learned to ski when I was in the military. I went up to a place called China Peak. And the first time I ever got on skis, I'll never forget that. This guy, he had graduated from the University of Oregon, but he was a seaman. And he goes, well, we should go skiing sometimes. He told me I like to ski. I said, oh, great, I like to learn to ski. So I'll go up with you. So not supposed to really go with the list of guys to do a lot with them, but I figured what the hell. And so we go up, and I said, well, where should I practice? He goes, oh, you don't need to practice. He goes, you're athletic, you're in shape. Here you go, we'll just go ahead and get on the chairlift here, and we'll just go up. And I go, well, you really think I just should get on the chairlift? He goes, yeah, just go ahead and get on the chairlift. So I get myself up, and I walk on the chairlift. We go riding up this chairlift, and there's this, you go to this one peak, and it snowed a ton that year. And then there was this huge valley in between where people would ski underneath it. I mean, you were 75 or 100 feet in the air going from here to one point to another. And I go, well, there's no bar up here, don't you have to fall out? He goes, oh no, it'll be okay. I said, well, how do you get off this thing? They apparently don't stop it. He goes, no, you just slide off it. It's really easy, you just slide off of it. And as I recall, and I'm probably wrong, it's the steepest drop off and getting off the thing I had ever been in my life. You go into a shed, and you drop off in this shed at the top of the hill, and then there's a wall right in front of you, so I go sliding on my fanny into this, I bang into the board, and I'm going, well, this is a disaster. And I says, are you sure there's an easy way down? This looks awful steep all the way down this thing. He goes, well, I don't know for sure because I've never skied here before, but he says, you'll be just fine. So I was black and blue for a long time because I learned to fall there. I did not learn to ski, but I learned to fall. One other story, when I was a little more, we were going to go, it was mainly all officers were pilots, and they were all going to Vietnam. In fact, Everett Alvarez was the first prisoner of war. He was a prisoner of war for 8.5 years. He was from our base. We had A4s and A7s there. So we had quite a few pilots that were getting shot down. The guy that roomed next to me got shot down once, and he made it to the coast and had parachuted out. And then I think he got then he was on a carrier once, and the place caught on fire, and so he ejected out of his plane when it was just parked on the deck of the aircraft carrier. So we decided one day, it wasn't him, but there was a bunch of guys who hadn't been flying yet or been over there. They thought, well, it'd be a good idea to go do some parachute jumping, or just see what it was like to jump out of a plane, so they had experience at it. So they went and got some chutes, and then we could go get these chutes on. And so then we decided we're going to go and we're going to jump out of a helicopter. And it was really windy anyway. And so then we go up in a helicopter, and somebody goes, well, who wants to jump? And they go, well, where do you hook this off? And we had no instruction or anything like that. And I go, well, first of all, that's not my thing anyway. And I'm saying, why am I here? And I'm going, if all these guys jump, I don't want to have to jump, really. Well, anyway, none of them ended up jumping because they decided it was too windy and it was a bad idea to jump without any experience, which was probably a good idea. Because in an ejection seat, because I got qualified to fly in the back seat, you have to go through an ejection sheet where you have to pull the chute thing over your head, and you have to go up at like the altitude of 30,000 feet or something like that. They put you in a compression chamber where they suck all the oxygen out of it. You have to be in there to see what it's like and see how you can move around. So I did all that. So, but I did not jump out of the helicopter, and none of the guys did. So that was that story. I worked for a Navy captain when I was at Lemoore, and my office was down the hallway quite a ways, but if he wanted me, he'd go, Ensign Hughes! Ensign Hughes! I go, oh, geez, what did I do wrong here? What did I do wrong? I come running up there, what did I do? And he had just stacks of paper and all kinds of stuff, because he'd been a commander, he just made captain, and we were short on officers, so I was in a position that was a lieutenant's billet. So I'd been in the service for, a year or something like that. You're supposed to be like 4 years in the service to be in that billet. So anyway, yeah, I was picked on a lot by him. It was all right.
My question would be, how do you look back on your time in Vietnam now, and what did you think of it then? Like emotionally, like were you ever wishing I wasn't here, or were you always happy with the experience and stuff that you were getting there? I mean, were you super happy to come home?
Yeah, I was worried about my folks because my folks got hurt, but I think when I first got there, I was really worried. It's like being in a place where it's just real random whether you're going to get killed or not. I mean, it's just really random. I mean, you're sleeping there at night, and all of a sudden some shells come in, and if you're in the wrong place, they hit you, and so that scared me. You'd go to bed at night, I'd sleep, and you'd sleep with. I had we are a hooch, and in summertime it was dry, but in the wintertime when it was rainy season, water was all over the place. We had great big rats. We had rats that were about that big, but we'd sleep, and I just have my boots down beside me, I had my gun down beside me, which I never ended up using, but and I used to sleep, I think, a lot with my flak jacket. When I first got there, I slept with my flak jacket over me. You'd have a fan at the end of your bed, and you'd sleep there. So when I was first there, I was scared and worried about getting blown to pieces for just randomly, and but as time went by, I think I enjoyed working the Vietnamese. They were real nice people, and you just figure their homeland was just kind of being destroyed. As I reflect back on it, I think the United States has to be comfortable about helping put things in their place. I guess from that standpoint, you can't let negative or bad regimes get away with things. I think it leads things like Hitler that eventually these countries become more powerful, and you never know what they're going to do. And I think the intent of the United States is always really good. I think our intentions, we have a self-interest obviously, but in the long term our intentions are for the betterment of that country. We're not trying to run the country or rule the country. But it's pretty hard to sit there and think, nobody wants to be told what to do. Everybody will take your money and say, thanks very much, okay, we really like you. But the reality of it is, nobody really wants to be told what to do. If you live in Reno, we don't want to be told by Las Vegas how to run our city. If you live in Nevada, you don't want to be told by California. If you live in the United States, you don't want to be told by Canada how to do things. And I think that's, so when you go and push your beliefs in other countries, it has to take somebody from inside that country to really say, yeah, this is what we want to do, and take a leadership role and do it. And I think the United States has this tendency to want to spend democracy like people used to want to spend religion, the Christian religion, the Muslim religion. And I think it's okay for us to take a part of that. But as I reflect back, you think that it's not just the thousands of American lives that were lost in this Vietnam, but you also had thousands of Vietnamese that were lost in the war, and their whole country was just torn up. And I think it was sad for them. I don't know that we really stopped communism because of it. I think that their sense of communism is completely different, and there's, I don't necessarily they were going to be aligned with the Chinese or the Russians or anything along that line. So I think as a country we need to be smart about how we interject ourselves into something. And it's okay to do it, but then get ourselves out of there. I also think that it's a tough deal that we have it's great that we have an army that's a volunteer army or armed services, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, etc. But it's not forcing anybody in our country to serve. What the military did was it really forced a lot of people to serve, and you get this diverse group of people working together. And I think one of the things about the United States now is you can grow up And you can live in a nice area of town, you can go to a private school or a nice school, you can go to a private college or expensive college, you can become a doctor, a lawyer, or a businessman, and you never have to interface with people that come from a different walk of life. And I think that's too bad. And and the one thing that the military did, I thought to some degree, was it forced people to kind of interact together that typically wouldn't interact together. It didn't matter whether you were a Muslim or a Christian, whether you're black or you're white, whether you're rich or you're poor. Everybody kind of had their job to do, and so they were all integrated in the system. And if you were overseas, especially if you were in country, the idea was to stay together and protect yourselves. And what we did was we built the barracks, so we put plywood up in everybody's room, so we hung plywood between their sleeping, in the hooches we called them. And what we would do is that if their bed was here, their rack, we called them racks, then we put a piece of plywood there, then we put another bed and another piece of plywood. So if a round happened to hit, it wouldn't hit everybody. The plywood would help absorb it.
Why did you come here then?
We skied when I had two friends that were fraternity brothers at Mather Air Force Base. They were navigators there. They weren't pilots there, but they were the navigators. And they flew in an F-4 Phantoms, and they were in the Air Force. And I'd drive up from Lemoore and pick them up, and then we'd come up here and ski. And we'd stay in Reno because it was cheaper to stay in Reno than it was to stay in Lake Tahoe. Probably got room here for $25 or something like that. So we used to ski up here, and I thought when I got out of the service, what I'd do is I thought about the place I might want to live was like Eugene, Oregon, or Reno, or Boise. I wanted to live in a town that was kind of mid-sized, that wasn't a big city, but I didn't want to go back to Montana either. And so I came here thinking I might work in the casino business because I came home early, and so I got discharged in October, and I thought, well, maybe I could go deal or something. I'm good with cars, I know how to count, and I'm good with arithmetic. And they go, oh, you have to go to dealing school, and it takes you a month or two to deal. I go, oh, that's too bad. And I went out and talked to a guy that had McKinsey Construction, and they go, they're looking for somebody at Harris to run their construction work. I go, really? I said, I was just down there. So he says, here's this guy's card, go down and see him. I go down and see him. I don't know, about a week later, 3 days later, they hired me to run construction work for them. So it was just, and I thought, well, and Reno was, to me, it was kind of a glamorous place to come because there was shows, and especially Harris. You had the showroom, you had Sammy Davis Jr. or Glenn Campbell or somebody like that playing there. There was just a lot of young people in the casinos back in those days. You had, your mom worked there. She was a cocktail waitress there for a while. I mean, obviously it wasn't until I've been there for quite a while, 20 some years or so before. But it was a fun place to go work, and a lot of people would work there. It was a good job for kids to work when they were going to college type of thing. So I've been out of Reno, and I'm working at Harris in the construction department. So I decided I needed a little more social activity. I played a little tennis. I met Bill Glenn early on. I met Bill Glenn. He was one of the first people I met in Reno. So I met him right like early '72 or something along that line, way before I knew the Heckman family, and not way before. But anyway. So I started playing bridge because I played bridge in college, and so I go to a bridge thing, and I meet this lady there that liked to play bridge, and she was looking for a partner, and it turned out to be Harriet. So we started playing bridge together, and we didn't fight too much over playing bridge like a lot of couples do when they play. And we started going out. I can just remember when we first went out, Allison, for some reason, I can just remember carrying Allison around a lot because we've got to do things. And Harriet, she just had a great family, and then Florence and all her brothers, and her brother Rick and her sisters, and we just had a really nice time doing things together. And she just was really kind of devoted to her family and kind of respectful and trusting and caring about everything, and so that was really a nice environment to be part of. I really enjoyed that, and Greg and Allie they were just great, great young kids, and they were just fun to be able to do things with, it was always easy kind of for me to feel like I kind of like to fit in. I like to see other people be happy, and so, you know, if they're happy and we're doing things, then it makes me kind of happy. That's just kind of my nature. And I just didn't have to necessarily be the leader of the pack type of a thing. And I wasn't great about planning new things to do. I was much better about kind of being part of something and enjoying it. So, but we went together for quite a while, for like 5 years, I guess, 4.5 years or so. And we got married in 1977. And we had a small wedding, and we had a mid-sized, and then when we got married at Kathy Lane's house, and which was nice of Kathy, and she was married to Steve at the time. And there was just a few family members there. It was a really small kind of wedding, and I still can remember pictures of it. It's lucky I have pictures of this stuff, because otherwise I don't remember it very well. But I still remember going to that, and then we took off, and we took a honeymoon trip, went over the coast, and went down the coast and everything like that. And I remember Ken Archer, who was my boss at the time, Greg had a paper route. He had one in the morning and one in the evening. So Ken was 60 years old at the time, I guess. He got up in the morning with Greg and took Greg over to drop him off so he could deliver his papers in the afternoon. I don't know if Greg even remembers that, but Ken was really gracious about doing that. But anyway, it was just, and it was kind of nice to have a family and be doing things together. And like I said, there was a really nice sense of responsibility and a sense of purpose and a sense of, you know, I guess happiness at the time. And right when we were getting married, we bought the house. I mean, we bought that house in 1978. So I think we lived just a brief while in the apartments over on Willowbrook, and then we ended up moving to the house and on Pine Brook, where Allison now lives. And I always remember Greg and I moved a bunch of stuff, and so he was only like 6 or 7 years old, and but we had all our friends come and help us. And I don't know all those friends today, and probably family, but we moved some stuff in the morning, but we were all moved, and the apartment house was all cleaned up in a day. And we had everything set up. We kind of had it organized so that the beds got set up and the dishes got kind of put in where they were supposed to go. So it was, I always feel good about things that go smoothly. I didn't ever mind helping people move, but I always liked it when they were organized, to kind of keep things going like you were accomplishing something and you weren't just standing around not doing anything. It's kind of like playing, it's no different than playing golf. It's fun to do it if you're moving along, and it sucks when you're just standing there waiting around type of thing. So, and I don't know why I feel that way, but I just do. So anyway, we had quite a few years. We played, we continued to play bridge. We played tennis together. We played volleyball together. So we did a lot of different things that way, and it was kind of fun to do that. Harriet sort of took up skiing, but it wasn't really her thing. She wasn't crazy about doing that. And I really didn't play much golf back in those days, so it was mainly, we played tennis, and we played a lot of doubles. We played with Rick and Joe and Doug and Nancy. I think maybe Kathy played a little bit, but not very much. And Jay and Loretta did too. I think Jay and Loretta were part of that group. So some of us lasted for a while. You know, I probably one of the things I most distinctly remember, it comes to mind anyway, was taking a trip when we rented the RV and traveled across the United States, and that was really a fun thing to do. It was one of those kind of adventures that you do, and I didn't do very many of those, so it's easy for me to recall a lot of the different elements about it. Kind of reminds me when I was in the military. You know, everything is pretty distinctive. You get a job and you say, I've been doing the same job for the last 10 years, and what's the difference between 5 years ago or 2 years ago? You can't remember. But that trip, you just remember going to Las Vegas and seeing a friend of Harriet's down there. And then my brother was getting married in Texas, so we went to Texas. Then the motorhome broke down, and we met this guy named Veronick, who was a really nice guy, who helped us get it fixed. And then we went from there to Tennessee, and then we went to Virginia. I couldn't get anybody up. It was a beautiful morning, and this sky was just pink on the clouds. It was just amazing. I go, you guys, you need to get up and look at all this thing. Oh, well, never mind. It was 6:30 in the morning. Nobody get up and move. And then we saw Roger Juanita, which was a friend of mine. He was a major in the Marine Corps, I guess, at the time. So I played golf with him, and it was Greg was old enough to drive. He was 16. He just had gotten old enough to drive. So we let him drive the motorhome. He was 16 and a half or something like that. So it kind of amazed me, because then if he was with you guys, the kids, if he asked you then drive, oh no, they can't, they haven't got enough experience, they can't drive a regular car. But I could drive it at 16 and a half, I could drive a great big motorhome. So anyway, we went to Washington D.C., and then we went up and saw Pat Gell's up in, they lived just outside of New York City, so then we went to New York City, and then we went to Michigan to see Judy. So we saw a bunch of her friends there. Actually, we came to Colorado and saw some more relatives of Harriet, so spent a lot of time visiting some of her Harriet's friends, a couple of my friends along the way. But it was just a fun trip. We were gone 23 days, and I never took a trip again that long until this past summer. I was gone for 3 weeks. But that was otherwise I don't think I've ever been gone 2 complete weeks. And so that was 1982, so it was 36 years later I took another long trip. So that's pretty typical of the Hughes family. It was sad when Harry and I kind of split up, but it just didn't seem like we were going together. It just didn't seem, it seemed like we always cared for each other, but it just didn't seem like we were in love anymore. And I thought, you know, when the topic of divorce came up, it just seemed like, well, it just doesn't seem like there's any magic left in our relationship. You know, we still like each other, we still care about each other, but it's not like we have this great passion to do things together. So we decided to get separated. I guess I stayed in the house, but then Harriet met some guy that she knew, and about 2 months later I met somebody, and we got divorced within like 2 or 3 months or something like that. It didn't take any time. And she bought it, I bought her, well, I didn't buy her, we bought it together, a condominium. And so she had a place because she didn't want the house. I said, well, okay, I'll take the house, and I'll take care of that and keep that. So we sort of set her up in kind of what she wanted, and I was happy with what I had. So and I was just, I think I don't know how she felt, but I was happy that she was happier. She seemed like, you know, there was more happiness in her life. And Greg was 18 at the time. He was just ready to go to college. So he was off going to college, and Allie was 14 at the time. So she lived with her mom for a while, and then she'd get mad at her mom and want to come live with me. And Harry and I were very good about, with the kids, of saying, you know, we're not going to quibble over the kid, we're not going to fight over the kids. You know, Harry was a good mother. She cared about her kids. And you know, she didn't deserve to be criticized by the kids because of what she was asking to do. And Harriet, I think, was good about doing the same for me. So that was something that was really positive about the way we interacted. And I always stayed in touch with, I'd become good friends with Doug and Rick and that side of the family, and because we did most of the things with that side of the family, to be quite honest with you. And I don't think that's uncommon in relationships. I think that the female side of the family tends to be more together, and partly they were all here too. That was obviously the other thing. So my brother Doug was living in Dallas, in Texas, and my other brother lives up at the ranch, and so there wasn't much interaction with them. So. And we'd gone home a couple times, went to the ranch a couple times. We just kind of went on our ways. And I just remember the kids, Greg was always good about studying, and Allison was good about studying on their own. It wasn't like they were, their nature was to be valedictorians. They did their homework, they did what they were supposed to do, but they weren't going to be, they weren't trying to get perfect grades when I say that. That was not their ambition in life. Greg was real active in his school politics. He was involved in baseball and wrestling. He wrestled for several years, and I give him credit for doing that. I always encouraged him to do something that was more lasting. And his senior year, he ended up going out for the ski team and skiing type of thing. But he's always kind of wanted to be his own person and wasn't always real coachable. I think he struggled with that a little bit. And it's not bad. It's just that's how everybody is. Some people are better about things and some are not. Where Allison was more of a person that wanted some direction and wanted some clarity in life. And Allison had a great group of friends. I think she entered high school with like 13 or 14 girls or something along that line. And they went all through high school together, and they still stayed friends. And I've encouraged that, because when you look back, you just sit back and say, there's just something, you have this common bond with everybody like that. And as you get older, even if you go, one person becomes extremely rich or somebody becomes famous or whatever it is, it's nice to be able to say, yeah, we were friends and we had this shared experience going to high school together, because it's usually fun times and it's usually kind of something that's meaningful and fun. So, but Greg had a great work ethic at the time, and he was always really responsible for things. I remember one night when he was going to be his senior year, he had a party at the house. And he wanted to have a party and some friends over. And Harry and I kind of go, well, how many friends? Well, maybe 40 or 50. Go, oh, that's quite a few. Don't try not to have that many. And he goes, well, we'll see. Okay, So we go out and we go to a movie and a dinner or something like that. We come back about 10:30 or 10:45 or something like that. I remember driving down the street and I go, wow. We told all the neighbors, I'm glad we told them, but there must be another party here going on, because look at all these cars. I mean, they're half a mile down the street now, so the place is packed. Well, we get home, and there's a line to get in our bathroom, in the main bedroom. There's a line to get in the half bathroom. There's a line to get in the bathroom, the regular bathrooms. There's lines to get water, the backyard. There's 150 kids there at least, easily. And of course they didn't have cell phones there, so there was a line to use the phone. And nobody was breaking anything up. Somebody brought a keg of beer. The good news was there were so many kids there that nobody could drink very much. And the other good thing was I knew a lot of the boys that were there. I think they like Kurt Kaiser and some of those kids. I can't remember, Dave Arsons might have been there. Dave Williams would have been there. And so you could sit and kind of say, okay, well, we're going to monitor this. So we shoot everybody out of our bedroom. But Greg was really good about being really responsible about saying, no, you can't do this, you can't tear up the backyard, you can't do this or that. So I don't know if he'll remember that many or not, or if I'm exaggerating or not, but there was a lot of kids at the party. And then what they do is, we went out by the gate, and at midnight I said, well, they have to leave. So they started leaving, and we checked the kids to see if they had too much to drink, and if we thought they had, then we take their keys and give them to somebody else and said, you have to drive. So we were good about that. But it would have been a lot of problems, I believe, if somebody got in an accident. That would not have been a good deal. It would not have been a good deal for them, it would not have been a good deal for us. Obviously, you wouldn't want anybody to get hurt in any case. So anyway, they all started to leave. By about 1 o'clock, everybody was gone. And then there was a few guys left, but somebody dropped the bottle and broken some stuff, and somebody thrown some papers in front. So I made them all, the few remaining people, clean it up. Which perturbed them, but then it was all picked up and it was kind of neat. But anyway, so we survived that. Then the flip side was, one night I'm gone, and now Allison is about 16 at the time, so she's now living with me. So I'm gone and I come home, and there's all these people in the house, and they're having a party, and there's popcorn or crap spread all over the floor. Just the whole living room, everything's, in the family room and the living room is all there's just stuff all over the floor. And Allison's sitting there in the corner with the boy that she's with, so she's just kind of hanging out in the corner of the living room. And I'm going, what's going on here? Oh, Dad, kind of like, I couldn't help this, what is going on? And so you're kind of going, well, now, Allie, you're responsible for this. Well, some of these boys weren't even supposed to be here. And I'd say, who is supposed to be here? And then she points to these guys and says, you guys get out of here right away. Oh, Dad, this is kind of embarrassing. It's like, I'm embarrassed by this. You can't just kick. Yeah, I can't. You guys just get out of here right now. You were supposed to be here. Get out of here. The rest of you guys start picking this stuff up. And they go, oh, who, me? And these other girls are there, and I go, yeah, you, start picking this stuff up. I want this stuff all picked up in the house. Oh my gosh, that was really, that was such an embarrassing moment for her. But anyway, I think it turned out fine. She kind of got the point. We never had any more problems with parties like that anymore. But she was, I don't know if she was mortified by it or not, looking back on it. She seemed to be struck by it, but who knows. But anyway, but she had some great friends. They'd come over, a lot of those girls would come over and stay and slumber party, and there'd be like 7 or 8 or 9 of them. I can remember driving around, and I had my car full of them one time, and it was, actually I was kind of stupid about it. I can't remember, I think I was driving kind of fast with them, and then we went downtown and we went to Lake Street, and I said, let's go look for, you guys, girls want to go look for hookers or something along this line, and it was kind of ridiculous. And so I see some old lady that was walking down there, it was like 10 o'clock at night, I said, you suppose she's one over there? And the girls would go, oh no, they're all like 15 or 16 years old or something like that. But anyway, and we took a nice trip and went down to Marriott's Great America, down by San Jose. Anyway, I can remember taking like 6 girls down there. We all go down there. They were just all really good kids. So she had a lot of really nice friends, and that was kind of cool. So I always enjoyed young people. So. And they were all active. Allison was involved in track. I mean, it doesn't seem like she was a real sprinter today, but she ran the 100-yard dash, and she was on the track team. I don't know if you guys do that or not. So, and she and Kelly Phillips were the 2 fastest kids, 2 fastest girls in Reno High, I think. She did that, so we'd go to track meets, and Greg played baseball, so we'd go to watch Greg play baseball. He hit a lot of home runs and dropped a lot of fly balls. So I'm picking on the kids now, but I think he acknowledged he was not the greatest outfielder this town has ever produced, but he hit a lot of home runs. Especially he was 6'3" and 240 pounds. But he did a great job at school. But he was student body president, and it made everybody really pleased. I can remember when he ran for it, and he was always really kind of creative. He's always been good about thinking kind of outside the box about stuff. And I remember they were having these dances, and they'd have to rent equipment for the dance. They'd have to rent the speakers, and so there would be a DJ and play the records and that sort of thing. And he goes, well, I'm going to talk to the school, he's going to buy it. So he talks to the vice principal, I think it was Ms. Jones was the guy's name, maybe it was Mrs. Jones, maybe she's the principal, can't remember. Anyway, so they gave him like $1,000 or $800 to go buy stuff for the school. So then we brought it home and we built a cabinet for it so that you could roll it around. It had the speakers in one cabinet and had all the receiver and everything in another one. And then it was easy to haul around and move it. And then they rented it out to the other schools, the other high schools in the area. And I think they paid for it the first year they got it. They got all their money back for it because they charged $200 or $300 to rent it out, and so it worked out good. So anyway, I can remember it when at graduation, the vice principal was speaking, and he said we had a great class, and he said the student body did a great job, and he says, and Greg Hughes did an amazing thing as president of the student body, and I thought, well, that was pretty special for him to acknowledge what a student like, that type of thing. So that was a nice, favorable thing to have him say about Greg. And the other thing is, and I mentioned this, Allison was nominated for homecoming queen. I don't know if everybody knows that or not. Harriet was too. Harriet was her homecoming queen in high school. So Allison was nominated. It was a little bigger school, but of all of her 12 or 14 friends, I think she had 14. I think there was 14 of them. 4 of the girls that were nominated for homecoming queen, 4 out of the 5 were her friends. So I thought to myself, boy, if you're in this clique, it's probably pretty special. If you're outside it probably sucks. And in fact, the current mayor now, Hillary Sheevey, who's the mayor now running again, she knew Allison from high school. Of course, Allison didn't remember Hillary from high school at all because they're the same age. But all I could remember was thinking, I'll bet guys like Hillary probably looked at Allison and says, yeah, those girls, they were just this little clique and, you know, blah, blah, blah type of thing. So anyway, but it was nice, and like I said, it's been great that Allison's done a good job of staying in touch with all those kids, and makes me feel glad for her, kind of proud of her because I think she's kind of one of the instigators of making sure that works that way. We had a dog, you know, Baggins, that we all loved and took good care of, big German Shepherd. You know, we used to have Sunday dinners almost every Sunday. I'd say we'd have dinners with Heckham's family. It'd be Doug and Nancy, Rick and Joe, myself and Harriet, and Steve and Kathy and Florence. And each of the girls would do something. One would bring meat, one would bring rolls, one would bring potatoes, one would bring vegetables, one would bring salad. And we would do this 7 out of 8 weekends that we would do this together. And it was great. It was always fun. There was always kind of the shared experience. It was comfortable for everybody to be able to do. And you know, I thought it was just great, and it was great for the kids, and that's part of the reason I think the kids, the cousins, are so close together still, because they just did so much together as a family type of a thing. And the one thing I'd say that I figured out is, too late in life, but I'd share with other people, is that you want to do things with your siblings and other people when you're young, and have experiences, whether you go fishing with them, or go skiing with them, or go hiking with them, or play volleyball with them, or, you know, cook with them, or whatever it is, play bridge with them, you know, whatever it is, because those shared experiences when you're young, it comes back, and you built these relationships. And what happens when you don't do that, then you don't have any kind of relationship with a person, and you just don't do as much. And my brother's being a good example. I was 4 years older than my brother Doug and 5 years older than my brother Tuck. And I was just so much older than they were that I never did very much with them, and they did a lot together. And then I'd work during the summer, and then they started going out to the ranch during the summer. So when we went to college, when we were still 4 or 5 years apart, but they were old enough now, you know, where I was 21 or 22, and they'd be like 17 or 18, where we might have done something together. But I'd be away at college, and when I'd come home, I'd go to work right away, and they'd immediately go out to the ranch and work. So Doug and I both play golf, and neither one of us, I don't ever remember playing golf with Doug. I mean, we just didn't have time when we spent time together. So I think one thing that's great is doing things when you do things together. It doesn't matter whether your parents do it with your kids, your grandparents do it with your grandkids, or whatever it is, or your brothers and sisters do it together. It's great to be able to find someone that you can do something with, that you can have a shared experience, so 20 years later you're still having somebody that you'd like to do something with.
How did you propose to Hezzy?
That's a good question.
Did you forget?
Yeah. That's correct. We were talking one night, and it was nothing really romantic about it. It was more, we'd gone together for a long time, and we'd spent some time together. And there was a sense of, and quite honestly, I don't think it was economically driven by any matter of means, but it was made more sense because, you know, we weren't living together type of a thing. So we had 2 different domiciles and that sort of thing. I'm thinking, and I think we just started talking one night and said, well, maybe we should get married. Maybe we should think about getting married. And we go, yeah, you know, maybe we should. And I tell you what, I think we decided to do that, and I think we got married 2 months later or something like that. I mean, it wasn't, we thought, well, we've been together for such a long time, this is kind of ridiculous. And I think we talked about it in maybe in September, and we got married in November. And then as soon as we got married, then we went shopping for a house and got a house. And the house wasn't built yet, it was just a foundation. We bought a house and moved into that, and I think that's springtime of '78 or something along that line. So yeah, I should probably remember that, but it was one of those things where it was more, we were just talking about what we wanted to do, and it's sort of like, well, maybe we should get married. So it was, and I'm not a romantic person by nature. I mean, I wasn't a touchy-feely person at all. That wasn't my family. And, you know, you say, it's like being celebratory. That family was much better about celebrating things than ours. We were good about Christmas. That was one time, must have been a good time with my dad growing up and my mom both, but otherwise, it was kind of not that way.
Was there any pressure to get married, or you guys were just thinking?
I don't think it was pressure to get married, no. I don't think that was it. I think it was more, sometimes you think to yourself, well, I'm not a kid, it's not like when I'm in my 20s or something along this line. And I think maybe it was self-imposed, where you sit and say to yourself, it would probably be better if we were married rather than being single, and you're saying, if we're going to continue this relationship, maybe it'd probably be better than be that. So I think from that standpoint, but there was no external pressure, and Harry didn't press me, and I didn't press Harry and say, hey, don't you think we should get married? But, I don't know about that. And one of the things I knew about myself was I knew that I came from a background where, when I say that money could be an issue, how you spent money. And so I had a checking account, and then Harriet had her own checking account at the time, and then we had a household account. So what we would do is, we'd say if we're going to spend something out of the household, if we're going to make the house payment or pay the utility bills or buy a new piece of furniture or something like that, that came out of the household thing. Then I had my account, and then Harriet had stuff that she'd buy for the kids. But because I said, I don't want to sit there and say, well, I don't think that, Greg needs a new pair of shoes. He just got a pair. Or I don't know that he needs that expensive a shirt. Or I don't know that we need to be, I just didn't want to have to be saying that, because I kind of worried that, you hear about people arguing about money all the time, and I thought I could see myself doing that, and we really never did. I once remember she bought some tires, and I go, why'd you buy those tires for? And she said, well, the guy at the tires said they were just about ready to they were unsafe to drive on. And I go, we didn't even look at it, but it was funny because that's the only thing I can ever remember about our, say, we didn't really argue about it. I just go, well, I can't believe, because I thought, well, we didn't even look at it and check it out. I mean, to make sure that they need to be, she just went into a tire place. The guy goes, oh, you need to have new tires. So she put 4 new tires on the car. I think, we need to look at them a little bit like that, because in the Hughes family, you wear them until they were bald. I mean, that's, you just didn't, you didn't go by what the safety inspector said or some guy at the shop said. You wore them until they were worn out, Even to this day, I wear, like my shirt wore out in the back, and it wore out in the sleeve. And I was like, oh, my dad would be so proud of me. I wore this thing until I wore it out. I once remember giving my dad well, I'll tell you the story. I showed my dad something. He comes up and he said, what do you think of this shirt? I go, oh, it looks nice, Dad. He goes, oh. He says, you gave it to me. I said, oh, I did? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, I don't remember. What was it? He said, oh, you gave it to me 2 years ago. He said, I just never wore it because the other shirt never wore out. But I saved it, and I'm wearing it now. My dad went to college. He told me when he went to college he had 2 shirts. He had one white shirt and he had one colored shirt. He wore the colored shirt every single day in class. And he says he got to wear the white shirt on the weekend. Those were the kind of stories I used to hear as a kid. So, it's just, and you didn't feel good about asking for stuff, because my folks never had anything extravagant themselves. I mean,
so with Dad being 6, when you met, and then what, like 10 or 11 when you guys got married, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So for Allie, it doesn't really matter because she can't even remember before that. But Dad was a little bit older, so was there anything weird about that? Like, did he have a hard time adjusting to that or anything?
He didn't seem to. We got along really pretty well, I think. I mean, you have to check, but I think we always had a really nice relationship. And he was just always really good. And I loved his industry about him. And you're right, I mean, Allison really didn't know her dad. In fact, I always remember when Harry and I got divorced. Well, there was a couple of things. There was a little bit of financial thing there because Kenny was not the best about some of that stuff. But he didn't do very much with the kids. He was pretty. He only he'd have to check with them. But I don't remember him hardly ever being around. And it was somewhat of kind of blessing. I felt bad for the kid, but the flip side of it was there wasn't a third person and they're kind of saying this is how things should be type of thing. And I'll always remember Kenny called up to see, when Harry and I got divorced, Kenny called the kids up and said he was going to come up to town. And he got remarried and had some, and his wife had children, so anyway, but he comes up to town, and I remember Greg going out, and they went out to lunch or something along this line. And so he and Allie and Greg went out to lunch. And Greg comes home, and Greg was always excited about stuff, you know, he was always kind of, hey, you know, this was like, I says, well, how'd everything go? And he said, you don't seem very happy. He said, oh, it was okay. And I go, well, and you know, you don't want to pry, but then you kind of want to understand things. And you know, you just kind of want the best for everybody. And so I said something about, well, how'd it go? And he goes, well, you know, first he starts out talking about this and that, and I don't want to put Kenny down by this, but then he kind of goes, well, then he kind of turns into the same old Kenny, and then we really didn't have too much to talk about. And I said, well, how did Allie get along with him? And she said, Dad, she didn't know what to even talk to him about. They just there was nothing in common there. And so it made me always feel comfortable about things, because you always think, well, you know, people are going to revert back, and it's okay if they do. I understand, you know, that's up to them. But from a selfish standpoint, it's nice when they sit there and say, well, they still care about you too, type of thing. So, you know, and I think one thing I think I got from my mom, it just occurs to me, there's a sense of selflessness that my mom was kind of that way. She'd sort of give things up so that not everybody had a good time, but whatever it was, and she put herself on. I kind of felt like I kind of do that sometimes too. It's more important to me that the people around me sometimes that are enjoying themselves than I myself am doing. I'll become part of their fun. If they're having a good time, I can be part of it. I don't need to be myself having a great time all the time. It's like when I take these guys when we go up to, you know, do something. It's great if they come back and says, you know, we had a great time rafting or doing this. I say, oh, good, had a good time. That makes it more fun for me. You know, maybe I wasn't doing as exciting a thing, but if they come back and said, oh, it really sucked, this is really boring, then I'd be saying, well, that's disappointing. Then even if I played golf and said, I had a great time playing golf, it wouldn't be nearly as much fun for me.
Do you remember when you guys went to court, I guess, and Allie said that she wanted to adopt you as her dad?
Yeah, I remember that. Steve was real good about that. I do remember vaguely going there, and that wasn't too long after we were married. We did that because I knew the kid for such a long time, and we asked the kids to make sure they were comfortable with it, and I think they understood it. I mean, you know, Greg was 12, and Allie would have been 8 or something along that line. Again, I don't think Kenny was a big part of their lives. I don't think he was around very much. I just remember vaguely seeing him, and like I said, I tried to always be hospitable and that sort of thing, but I don't remember taking the kids hardly at all, you know, doing anything with them. Sometimes I'd always say, well, maybe he just felt it was best that he did. I don't know what his thinking was at all. I don't know whether he just said, I've got my own life to live, and I don't really need. But I can remember being kind of amazed he wasn't more involved just because they were good kids. I mean, you know, it wasn't like, gee, I got 2 problem kids here and I don't really want them around anymore. You know, they were always really good and they were fun to do things with. And it was interesting, you know, Todd McKenzie called me to tell him that, because Todd's aunt was married to Kenny, and Todd called me, I don't know if you guys knew that or not, and said that Kenny passed away just a few months ago. And then I called Greg and Allie about it. So it was just, so. And, you know, the way Greg and Allie kind of reacted to it, I think there was a little bit of bitterness on their part, like they'd been kind of deserted by their birth dad. But, and I can understand that, and yet I don't know if we don't know all the circumstances. You really don't. I choose to think that maybe he thought it was for the best, maybe. Maybe he was a jerk about it, but I choose to think about it, saying that, he found somebody else that he was married to, they had a family, and he thought it was just the best that he did his own thing, and so, but it was wonderful for me because it became part of the family, and Harry and I were married for a while, and